So, welcome to Love and Align with Coco and Paulie,
I'm
Awakening Awareness Part 2.
sorry. I'm Coco.
I'm Paulie. Here we are again. Yes.
Yeah,
We
part
wanted to
two.
go with this again because Awakening Awareness is such like we were before we started the recording here talking about how it's multi-layered and a couple of things that, we have both experienced that point to that, like awareness, how it can be. You had looked up the definition of awareness, right, Coco? And it's
hmm
more,
Yeah,
there's
because
different ways to be aware.
right. Yeah, there's like four states of awareness. Your physical and your mental and other things. But what I
Hmm.
thought it was just interesting because when I was reading about the awareness, it was just like observing without attachment or judgment. And I'm like, I am just I'm ridiculously self-aware, but it doesn't come without like judgment a lot of the time.
Yeah.
That's I
That's why if
think
you
that
focus on that, I bring that up in my meditations a lot because it's like try to do it without judgment because I know I
yeah,
fall prey to that all the time.
yeah, yeah.
But
It's
that's
not
just
so bad
natural.
anymore.
It's a natural human thing. In the PDF,
Yeah,
we mentioned how it's like you have to try to observe. It's like standing by a river and observing events.
yeah. I
But
try to do that more and more.
mhm.
And I'm getting there even like with myself. And I had this thought earlier too that I was thinking that like once I escape the city and I'm able to be more in nature, on a daily basis and stuff like that, that
Yes,
maybe it'll be even less than that. I don't know, just
yeah.
because the different challenges, more different places or situations, I suppose. But anyway,
No,
yeah.
you're. I totally get that. We used to live closer to the city, and now we're out in the country more, and it
Mm,
it makes a big difference. Being able
yeah.
to slow down a little bit more. Yeah.
I've done both, but it's been too long since I've like lived out of a city. I was born and raised in a small town, and when I hit like middle school time, that's when we started hitting, we moved to Tampa, and then I ended up out here in Phoenix area, Arizona. So
Mm.
done the city hopping thing.
Oh,
I'm
that's
ready to
interesting. So my story is just the opposite of that in a way
mm,
because we actually grew up in suburbia, and then it wasn't until I was 10 years old and we moved to like a 10-acre plot in Michigan.
mm,
So I got to run around with my friends and I just all through the woods.
awesome.
Hmm.
Yeah. I miss that about being little. Like I remember doing that because we were like right on the edge of like New York, Pennsylvania, and
Yeah.
like looking at the map now, I'm like looking at it, I'm like, holy crap! Like I was running around in like northern Appalachia, which is really cool when you're like a witch. You're like, oh, I like grew up in
Yeah.
like Appalachia. That's really
Hmm.
freaking cool.
A lot of good
But
history there.
yeah, yeah. What? It's like they're like the oldest thing ever. They're older than anything on this earth, apparently. Literally, the
Oh, I
Appalachians
hadn't
are
heard
the
that.
oldest thing on
Okay.
earth. They
Oh, I hadn't
have,
heard that.
yeah.
Oh,
They,
when
I
I
mean,
said
think about
history,
that.
I just meant like
Yeah.
just in general.
Oh,
Ooh,
yeah, definitely, definitely that too. But I don't know. I guess I went big.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. I'll have to look
Anyway,
that up. That's
yeah.
good
The
to know.
other thing too, I think, just
Good to be
coming
aware
back
of.
to, just coming back to the awareness and the awakening step was like, we didn't really get to like the survival tips, um, on the end of
Oh
like the
yeah, that's right.
PDF.
You know what? I was looking at that too.
So I thought that
Well,
we could at least revisit that, and then that might lead to some good conversation too, and maybe some other topics that we can get into. But
that sounds good.
um, yeah, so just some survival tips for awakening and awareness. Awakening isn't about suddenly knowing everything, it's about becoming open to learning and unlearning. That one's really important. Give yourself permission to grow without the pressure of having all the answers. Um,
Mm,
yeah, I think
learning.
that there's like that being said, like there's this big thing in society that you're like not credible unless you have all of the answers and everything cited,
Mm.
right? Which to me, like
Is
shedding that
changing.
sort of, well,
Yeah.
shedding that sort, that's programming, in my opinion. Like that's
Yes.
very, because our accounts, the things that we know and see and feel um, within us is proof enough a lot of the times, right? Like as
Correct.
mystics and supernatural and whatever, dealing with all of that stuff, there's not often um, reasons behind things like scientific reasons or explanations for things. So,
Right.
along with that, so unlearning things and learning new things and understanding that like you can you can know you can know something and believe in something and know
Mhm.
that it's true without having any sort of proof
Yeah.
of that. And I'm going to stick to that
And
because
that is both a process, in my opinion. I'm glad you brought that up because that's a process of both learning and unlearning, right?
yeah,
Because it's like standing in your truth, but then unlearning the judgment that comes with it. But also, I think the very definition of knowing yourself and standing in your truth, like for V, it was defining it by other people's things or things we were
yeah,
taught instead of my own. And so then I was hit with like an imposter syndrome for a while.
yeah.
Like, am I really kind of like, do I have like this extra sensitivity that I mean, be our clairsentient? And that's a
Mm-hmm,
lot of things that's something a lot of people are waking up to
mm-hmm,
in different stages right now, I think, because we're talking about it more. And that's what's important. That's why I'm
mm,
glad you brought that up because knowing something and being able to tell yourself, I know this. It doesn't matter what other people say. I know this is
yeah,
my truth. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to talk about it all the time, right? But it's
yeah,
like, I mean, there's such a thing as oversharing, but knowing your truth, knowing it is very important. And sometimes speaking it is like a great way to, especially during like meditation, bring things into, I think, to manifest things for real. Because as a
mm,
friend of mine recently posted, Heather recently posted, it's about, it's about genuinely believing is all it takes because I think anyone who has experienced any kind of joy in their life or making something happen knows it starts with an idea and
mm-hmm,
believing in something. That's how everything starts. So
yeah,
it's both a learning and unlearning because you're learning a new way of doing it, but you at the same time are like having to we've
yeah,
had to, detach ourselves from
yeah.
old styles of
Well, yeah, like
living.
because everything in you wants to hold on to what's comfortable or
Sure.
known, right? The
Yeah, very
unknown's
natural.
scary. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's valid.
Hmm.
Um, let's see, everyone moves through stages of awakening at their own pace. Avoid comparison and trust that your journey is unfolding exactly as it should.
The judgment.
Um,
The
the
judgment.
judgment,
Yeah.
the being like in people's faces, the oversharing that you mentioned, that one, because I overshare anyway, and then like you really
You've had
start to
to
like feel things in your body and
we
then
have
you
had
really
to
want to share them.
actually say to ourselves, okay, yes, I'm going to be the observer here and just hold on to whatever I'm going to say because I, don't want to do foot and mouth. And although putting your foot in your mouth is sometimes the best way to learn too. It's like you have to learn. I don't know. I'm the kind of person who I have to do it wrong 5 times before I'm comfortable
I
with how
think
I
that
want to do it.
there's a thing in learning who you can and can't with, right?
Yeah,
Like you
definitely.
you just learn that you don't have certain conversations with certain people because it doesn't resonate, right? It doesn't,
Mm.
I don't know. So I think that's part of that. It's just like
Hmm.
everybody goes at their own pace or never. Some people don't ever get there, and that's
Yeah.
unfortunate. But
Well, and again, that's an organic thing.
yep.
It's easy to say in my mind, like I don't think somebody's at a certain stage, but they might be at it somewhere else where I'm not yet, too.
Well,
And
too,
that's where
and
it's figuring out how you jive with people.
yeah, too, that they where they are at actually could have been a whole lot of work for
Yeah,
them to
right.
get to that place.
That
Who
removing
knows?
that judgment. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. But yeah, I'll stick by the fact that some people will never, ever, ever get there,
Yes,
ever
I believe that's true.
either.
Yes. At least not in this life, not this time
Yep.
around, right? I
Yeah, I'll keep doing it until they figure it out, I suppose.
suppose. That's
So
karma. That's karma dharma. I wonder if anyone's ever named their kid that. Karma
hope
dharma.
not. Terrible. If that's your name, I'm so sorry. If
That's true. I shouldn't joke about that.
if you're feeling lost, emotional, or disconnected from old patterns, know that this is normal. Embrace change as part of the process and seek support from people who align with your evolving perspective. We kind of touched on that, but I meant to go back and talk about this. Trust that your journey is unfolding exactly as it should.
Mm,
I just want to remind everybody timing is really important. And I'm only emphasizing this because this is a recent discovery for me. This is a recent like it's finally like starting to take hold.
Click.
is you literally have to let go of like what you expect things to look like and the time you expect them to come. Because, as someone who is like, but like when, like I'm ready. No, you're not. And the universe knows it, right? So you obviously have some growing to do before you get it. You obviously
Yeah.
have something to learn. You can't be given a buttload of money when you still have an old money mindset. You can't be given a brand new, car when you haven't figured out how to take care of like the one that you have. You're not, there's things that like,
Trust.
until you learn lessons, until you change perspective, things won't happen for you, right? So, and in that, if you let go of what things look like and the timing of them, it'll give you a whole lot of relief,
Yes.
right? Because then if you're focused on the feeling that you'll have at the end of it, then you'll get there a lot sooner in the trust. Anyway, I say all that
Hmm.
um to say that if you're like in the middle of like this epic year-long, 2-year-long, 3-year-long journey and you're
Hmm.
desperately waiting for your miracle to come, you just gotta let go.
Yeah. Got to work.
That's it.
Gotta let
That's
go.
I just had to say all that. Anyway,
No, you're
what?
right. I say
Yeah,
work at it, but at the same time, it's letting go. It's because you don't know. For V, it's finally realizing I am not going to know what it is until I get there. Right? It's like
yeah,
something behind a veil is what it was for V. And I think
yeah.
that's it's work because it's not going to happen unless you try to do something, and yet at the same time you can't try to control it. It's
Right,
also letting go and just knowing, as you said so well, you have no idea what it's going to look like
yeah.
until you get there. So trust that you will get
Hmm.
there by trying, by believing.
Hmm. Yeah.
So thank you.
It goes along with manifestation. I know we're getting a little off topic, but like
Yeah.
I think that's the confusing thing about like manifestation is like,
Yeah.
because as somebody who you manifest stupid little stuff. You're like, oh, I need money. And then you find, a nickel on the ground. That's finding money. You just manifested that, right? Like, but so, then it's like, oh, well, be specific about the thing that you want.
Mm,
But then like, if you're trying to manifest $1 million, then like, what is it that has to happen for the universe to manifest you $1 million or, you know, yada, yada. The point is to focus on the feeling that $1 million might bring you, which is comfort, peace, right? Like, oh
and
man,
read it.
if I had that, what would I get from it? I would get peace of mind, I would get security, I would be able to pay my bills and I would be at ease. And those are the things that you focus on, right? Um,
That's right.
and that's how you be specific. You be specific in the feeling that you want to get at the end of what it is you're trying to achieve, not say, I want this and I want this and I want this and I want them in this order, because that's actually way more difficult for the
That's not
universe to
divine
do.
timing, and that's
Right.
that's not trusting the flow. and
Right.
and actually it's amazing really to be able to let go like that and yet focus on the feeling, because it's really
Yeah.
redefining, like in your specific example, and it might be different in other examples, but in that specific example you're redefining what wealth means
Hmm. Yeah.
without even
It's funny.
realizing, without even to be like, I need to redefine what wealth means to myself, because you're focusing on the feeling.
Well, it's funny that you say that because I mentioned this to Mikey yesterday. I was reading through um, my birth chart. I have an old birth chart that I got online, the astro.com one
Yeah.
that I was looking at. And I was telling him how funny it is to have read this birth chart like a decade ago and
Wow.
um, reading something and thinking to myself, that's not even true. Like that's not anything close to me. Like certain things,
Mm,
right? Like
sure.
most of it is there, but there was a lot of things that I'm like, that's iffy, and I'm not sure about that. But
Oh.
the more and more I become my more authentic self, the
Yeah.
more and more this thing says
Ah,
exactly. It's
yeah.
wild. So this
We
is
went
just a
through the
fun thing.
same thing
Like,
with my chart. Yes, exactly.
yes,
Hmm.
but like to the point where there's one
Continues.
on the, or no, is this the one that you did?
Well, I used
There's
astro.com. I use
that's the one
Astro
that
and another
that's the
stuff.
one that you did. The one that I've done online. Um, it says in there specifically that you dress elegantly. First of all, anybody who has ever known me at any point in my life, I have never been elegant. What you would determine,
Long gowns and things
yeah,
like
like
that.
you think, yeah, like
Going to the ball.
outside of being like I'm gaudy. I've always used the word gaudy to uh as my style, so to speak. Like
The necklaces and
um
stuff. Sure, that's
yeah,
cool.
there's always
Yeah,
I always had
groovy.
like big chunky jewelry or some
Okay.
sort of
Yeah.
like weird hair situation or whatever the case is. I like
Very
loud.
Queen of Pentacles. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'll claim that all day. But yeah, so for it to read elegant, and then I was thinking a little bit more about it, and I was like, what if that doesn't mean what I think? And what if elegant
Ah,
isn't what it
right.
means? Because when you look at it in terms of like in the biggest in the biggest perspective, how the world is changing, how the earth is changing, how we are changing as a society.
Hmm.
What if I am somebody who is important in the
Ah,
future, and
hmm.
this is how maybe I become there's a style that comes out of this, and that is what
Elegant.
becomes elegant in the
Yes.
future.
Yeah,
Like, I don't
definitions
know.
of words change all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
And I know that seems like ridiculous
Is
to
that a
put myself
stretch?
there, but
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 no.
it's not.
Well,
It's
because
not
nobody knows
because
what the future is going to be.
we're
And
all that important, and if I feel like if
hmm
we treat ourselves like we're important, like the things that we are doing all the time are going to affect tomorrow, then we could
because
all
they
be
are.
that. Yeah,
Right, exactly.
absolutely.
Yeah, nobody
So
knows the future, and as we've seen from things that have happened in the past or whatever, it's why bother trying to predict it? Go with that. And
right.
the more we look at like my own chart, it's like yes, and the more I learn about astrology, the more it becomes apparent because it's changing perspective
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
owning what it is you are
Right.
and then stepping forward from there.
Right. And just like I don't know, just embracing like honestly, like embracing authenticity will only bring you
Yeah.
closer and closer to what is true. What is here, because
Yes.
there's so much in there that's like, yes, that's me. You know what I mean? So like to that point, I was like, when there's weird stuff in there that's like doesn't touch, and then years later, some of it does, or you can even see it becoming, or
Yeah.
how that could be the case in the future because these other things did come to fruition. I think that's really cool. I think it's just more like of a draw and a push to just do what I do what I
To
want.
like to yeah, practice
You
that
know what I
awareness,
mean?
to like
Yeah.
believe and
Yeah.
know in what it is that you want, but more from
Yeah.
the feeling and emotional perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
Most
For
definitely.
sure.
That's what did you want to go over some of those other points?
Yeah, no,
Did
I
you
was just gonna let you, if you had something to finish. I was grabbing there's like one or two other survival tips.
No, well, I was going to say actually that a lot of what you've said has resonated with V here because when V came out as queer, so that was like a lot of awareness that had built up
Mm-hmm.
over like I didn't come out till I was 50. So V came out though because V had a lot of awareness kind of came to a point that caused that like definitely caused an awakening. In that case, it was just a moment and knowing that when I came out, I didn't have to make a big deal about it. But see,
Mm-hmm.
but my point is that coming out was years of awareness because like going way back into I had to go back and reevaluate the way I had looked at um gender and attraction and sexuality and different people's, even your body type and what that can mean for different things, and really kind of pick apart all of and try to, extract what I really felt was close to my heart.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard to know what I believed because I was extracting it from all the things that I was taught or had chosen to continue to believe that wasn't close to my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And so the only way for V to come out really finally and be comfortable with the way I was doing it too was to be able to say, like months of this observing myself over the years, observing
Mm-hmm.
things and talking to people and observing things. And part of it was talk therapy too and everything. But really, most of it was the people that V knew.
Mm-hmm.
And finally being able to say, oh, all of these ideas I had about gender, and that's like a whole, I mean, gender is ridiculously easy to pick apart because it is such a social construct. But knowing
Mm-hmm.
like, well, if your body's like this and you're attracted to this, but then your sexuality can be this, and they're all different things, and because every human is different, and we finally were able to step back and go, oh, so the way I feel fits into, finally just settled on queer, which actually used to be a term who a lot of people my age or our age didn't like that term. It was used to
Yeah.
insult us, but our community's taken it back now, thank God.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really just not fitting in any box. But my
Mm-hmm.
point is again, it was like that. It was probably a year of practiced awareness, but it was gathering all of these observations throughout my life. And that allowed
Mm-hmm.
me to finally
Yeah.
stand in my truth. It was the only way I could really rectify. And, hey, I wish I'd come out when I was, 20, but I didn't
Yeah.
know what non binary was then. V didn't know really what a
Mm-hmm.
new definition of queer could be because that's now changed over the years. But it happened when it did because that was divine timing. All of the
Yeah.
things that, I couldn't have forced it in any better way. And it felt so good to be able to finally come out and be like, yeah, this is what defines
Yeah.
me best. But it was
Yeah.
again that extracting from those old lessons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the hardest part about it. And
I
then
think
being able
that's
to observe my progress now has been huge.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's why I
Definitely.
say to people, journal, at least journal or do a video blog to yourself. You don't have to show
Yeah.
it to anybody else because being able to look back on your progress is huge. You can pat
Mm-hmm.
yourself on the back.
Agree. Well, it's everything too, because like you're probably not going to get it externally,
Right.
right? Like it's
Not
you
much.
gotta
I mean,
right.
I think it depends somewhat on the people around you because, like I said, my final coming out was the people around me. It wasn't the people around me who like built up my awareness necessarily. There were
Mm-hmm.
bits and pieces of that, but it was, yeah, the final push was on me. But I think that can help sometimes to have, but they have to be supportive people too. And
Mm-hmm.
eventually it all does to come back to you. It comes back to
Yeah.
you. It has to.
Yeah.
However much I felt I loved someone and trusted them, it had to come back to me. Otherwise, it was someone else's idea.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Because you have to take that trust and put it into action and say, okay, if I trust them, then I trust that they won't hurt me. And I also have to be brave enough to know that they could. Let's go.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. Let's go. I
Let's
love it.
go. Uh,
And
kind of
on
how
we
I operate these
now
days.
we're in the well, it's Aries season. That's all right. Let's go. Let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I live with one, so
There you
it's
go.
fiery all the time.
He's very fiery. Lots
I
of
love
fire
it.
in his chart.
He is. Yeah, he seemed real docile when I met him, and then he slowly, I was like,
That mellow
oh,
demeanor.
yeah. Yeah, he's fun though. Let's see. What else? It's easy to get overwhelmed or feel isolated. Remember to stay grounded. Spiritual awakening is about integrating new perspectives while still functioning in the present world. Balance is key.
That's what we were kind of just talking about there. Mm.
You got to figure it out. Like when I read this, I'm like, there's no, we could coach
It's
you all day on how to breathe or stay
well, and
grounded or
I
do
I wanted to
whatever.
say that I think a lot of
Hard.
what you and I had talked about in this subject here has probably sounded like that. I know it has to be sometimes listening to it on the side, like in the first video, but it's really because you have to experience it. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
trust I think we're talking about. It is not necessarily something that everybody is going to say, this is something I want to do because
Mm-hmm.
either it's challenging or you're perfectly fine with the life you have. And
Mm-hmm.
you don't need more, you don't feel you need more awareness. You don't feel
Right.
you need to wake up to anything. And
Right.
that's true for most people, and that's totally fine. But
Yeah.
it's just that if you I'm just, my suggestion would be to anyone. We're trying to give out little tiny, we're not trying to scare anybody, but little tiny warnings just because if you feel you have some new information that you want to investigate. It's so easy to do that with the internet, and you never know what experience, just experiencing something new is going to do to change your perspective, and what
Yeah.
you might find out about yourself is just a bonus. I would say look at it like that. What you might find out about yourself is a bonus. I do it because that's one of the main reasons I wanted. One of the things we want to do, but if that's not for everybody,
Hmm.
but just know that might be a bonus, right?
Yeah.
Passive
It's,
awareness.
yeah. I was just thinking about this earlier about like, I was reading the notes of the
Mhm.
overwhelm and the isolation and
Hmm.
like, it is hard because even like, there will even be like spiritual, metaphysical, witchy people in your life who still will not understand the things that you're saying. So like
Right,
that needs to be understood too. Like
right.
just because somebody is says that they're a witch or a spiritual person, they can look at you sideways too and just not
Well, and
understand
also
where you're coming
people
from.
people who practice popular religion too can have awareness and awakenings. I mean, it's
Yeah,
not, so
right.
it's a
I think
spiritual thing.
I think to go back, maybe it's helpful to go back to the thing that you were talking about with like labels because
Mm,
I think that deep down at the end of all of it, it's like all of this is about shedding labels, right? We
yes.
want to come to terms with who we are. We want to figure out, our gender, or whatever it is that we're trying to seek,
Hmm.
and find a thing that makes sense to us. But at the end of the day, I think that we need to learn to like shed the things too,
Yes.
right?
That's the
So,
big important thing.
right, in every sort of aspect.
That's
Um,
the observation. Like being
yeah.
able to look at myself and say, "Oh, now I'm this or I'm that." Now
Hmm.
comes along with the fact that I chose that. That's something
Yeah.
I chose to do instead of it's something I'm just like, "Oh, how did I end up like this?" And so that's why
Mm.
we like to practice the continued
Yeah.
awareness.
Yeah. Mm.
Being in control of my life as much as least more than I feel I used to be, and still
Yeah.
knowing when to surrender to the flow. But it's not always easy.
It gets easier. It's
It
crazy
does get
how it gets
easier. It does
easier.
get easier. Yes. I mean, it's
Like,
addictive. It's addictive in a way. Right? I would say because of the fact that it feels so joyful. It
well,
feels so
because
good to
like
wake up and be like,
there's a lot more ease in your life when
yeah,
you can like easily determine what's like, I don't know, I suppose where you can categorize it like this needs immediate attention or this is like
yeah.
this is okay. And I think the more that you understand that people that we're all just like this, we're just the same, that everything that's going on in my life is actually also going on in your life, and it's also going on his and her life and their life and everybody's
Well,
lives.
what can we
And
learn from one another?
well, yeah, but like
That's why we want
I
the
don't
discussion
know,
here.
it's hard to, it's weird, it's hard to get so angry at somebody in traffic anymore when you realize that like maybe they had just as much of a shit life as
Oh
I
my
did or
goodness.
somebody else had, but like
That is
they haven't
so
had the,
funny
well,
that
that
you
they
would
haven't
bring that
had
up.
the
No,
time or
V said
resource.
that when I was at a corporate job, I brought that up at a meeting once where we were doing group activities.
Yeah.
And it was I said to the people in the group and I got blank stares and I said, sometimes when somebody cuts me off, I wonder maybe they got to get to the hospital in a hurry. And everyone was like, and I'm like, well,
It's true. But like the more you do that, the more you sort of give the benefit of the doubt in that
yeah,
situation where you're
it's
like
about being
completely,
more
yeah,
optimistic, seeing the brighter things, even knowing there's
yes,
dark there, knowing that there's negativity, but seeing the
yeah.
brighter, choosing the brighter path instead.
Well, understanding that like not everybody has the tools that everybody has.
Yeah, no
And,
shit.
and not right. So
Yeah.
like I don't know, I could be pissed off for 20 minutes about somebody who did that and it was unjust, but like I don't know, I just sometimes I feel sad. It's
Well,
like
what V try to always focus on is all the things that, as much as I might suffer on this or that, it's not about feeling sorry for myself. What do I have to celebrate? And then how can that
yeah.
help me in the
Yeah,
areas that
that
I need
too.
help in, that I feel I need help in?
Yeah. That
But
too.
it's not always easy to do. But it's like
Yeah.
there's so many reasons to be one way or the other.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah. I
and
think yeah, I think the more that you just like experience like I think if you can like forgive people in your life, we go back to like forgiveness from like episode 1. Go watch it if you haven't watched it.
That's right. A
Um,
lot of good shadow work stuff.
well, like when you can forgive like the people who did like the worst, like most heinous crap to you, like it's
Yeah.
really easy to just like kind of giggle and laugh at people who are like, okay, so for instance, I've got friends that like I have this friend that just like cut me off, right? Like it's all or
Oh,
nothing, right? Can't just be like, can't just exist and do this, right? It's got to be all or nothing, right? And I
mm.
don't understand that, but that's fine because at the end of the day, like I think everybody's going through the dark night of the soul right now. I think
In a
everybody
lot
is
of ways.
struggling in
Yeah.
ways that they have never struggled in
Challenge.
their
There's a lot of
lives.
challenge. People are being challenged in a lot of
And
ways.
if you have never taken the time, if you've never sat with yourself and really, really done it, and it's being forced on you because the planets or the environment, the government, whatever it is like
Put yourself
imposing
there.
this stuff on you, you're having a hard time.
Oh,
Me, Paulie, a lot of us out here who have been doing this for years are looking around, and I'm empathetic as hell to
yep.
people right now. I am moving and understanding. Like my mom, she came home last week and she's like, I just don't understand. She's having a hard time with people at work that she genuinely like likes and doesn't normally have issues with, like friendships with. I said, okay, but is she like this normally? And maybe it's this and maybe it's that. And I'm like, look at all this going on. And she's like, you know what, you're
Mhm.
right. So I think it's just like, I don't know, it's understanding that
Things are really stirred up right now. And
everybody's going through stuff. Everybody. Hard, hard. So I don't know.
I'm glad you brought up
Maybe,
empathy. Empathy is very important right now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. To everybody,
Feeling
no
for each
matter
other.
what,
Hmm.
everybody.
Just be aware of what's going on around you, and let us know what's going on in your minds, what you want to talk about more.
Yeah.
Discussion here is something that we would love because your opinion is important. Your voice is important. As you said earlier, also, Coco, it's like knowing that each person is important at the end of the day, just for
Yeah.
being born.
Yeah.
You don't have to earn the right for a happy life.
Yeah.
Just be aware of the things in your life and the feelings that give you comfort and joy, and pay
Hmm.
attention to those and follow those. That's at
Hmm.
least a good place to start. That's how V started. Following the
Yeah.
things that brought us joy, even the mixed up, mucked up joy. Sometimes it just comes with like rolling around in the mud, you know,
Yeah.
whether you like to do that literally or not.
There was, I saw a video or saw a thing once that kind of brings me back when I'm having a hard time, like feeling empathetic or seeing somebody's perspective or whatever. It kind of goes back to like, especially if you can like look at a small child or I don't know somebody,
Oh yeah,
you go back and you say, at what point like did they stop being worthy of love?
right.
What did they do?
The child
What in their
always
life did
deserves
they
love.
do?
Right.
You do. I
Right.
do. As a
Hmm.
50 something, 40 something, doesn't matter. At what point in our lives
The
did
inner
we stop
child.
deserving of love and compassion? Like it should, the answer
Whose
is
call is that, right? Who makes that call, right? Yeah.
because
Yeah.
if you stop and you yourself try to put a point on it, you feel like I feel like a trash person
Why would you do that to
who can
anybody?
come up with
Right.
a point. It says, this was the point in life when you stopped deserving love. So to me, it's very powerful to
Yeah,
think that and say, what point in their life did they stop deserving it? Right? Like,
precisely. And that right there, I think, is self-awareness. It's very important in this. V have had several times going through my own awareness, and then what that has generated in V when it was like, well, I'm angry about that system, or I'm angry about that person, or I'm angry. And all of that was like, well, where's all the anger coming from?
yeah,
So that's the thing. It's the awareness is like that sometimes where the layers come in
yeah,
like that, but it
yeah.
doesn't change the fact that empathy is important
Hmm.
because it's a human thing. Going through this is a human thing. Anybody can go through it.
Well, you have to have it.
Yeah.
Empathy is, you need to have it in order to truly, I
Yeah.
think, love anybody. I had a whole, I had a whole ego death recently. It,
I remember you said that. Yeah.
after our last episode when I was like, I'm pretty self-aware, but I get called out sometimes. How about the universe immediately called me out? Immediately was like, are you self-aware? Are you
Yeah.
really? And in that moment, you have to, you can either choose to double down with yourself and your ego, or you
Oh,
can choose empathy. You can choose to look at the person that you're hurting, look at the person that you're treating unjustly, and say, you know what? I am I'm way out of line, right?
that's a good way to put
So
it. Hmm.
so you know,
And then,
every day is
but
a
then pulling yourself back. So one thing, whenever I felt I was out of line when I first started practicing more active awareness, being out of a line then at first was like I would beat myself up. And then I realized
Mhm.
later, well, now I have to have empathy for myself.
Yeah.
So, and then, but then that gets
Yeah.
into the shadow work and everything. But I'm just saying that it does come back to that quite often. It's the
Mhm.
kindness, it's the love. Otherwise, you're
Mhm.
out of alignment. I mean,
Well, yeah,
that
I
is
mean
how we feel. I only feel aligned when I am following a feeling that feels good in my heart, sometimes in
mhm,
my stomach. I mean, like in my guts. It's
yeah.
really something that helps my body feel relaxed and calm. And
Mhm.
it's not like practicing this has become something where I can find it right away, but it is when I'm on that path and knowing it, it's the practice has allowed me to know that feeling and stay with it for longer. I
Yeah.
suppose would be one way to put it. And
Yeah.
that has helped in a huge way. Because yeah, otherwise, oh, the ego comes in there and it's just like, no, I need to
Mhm.
have my way.
It's hard. I think I've had the most trouble with that just because of like past the way I worked through all of it was like I just try to understand like where it came from or where it's coming from.
Hmm.
And it doesn't dismiss it in myself. It just makes it like, okay, well, I see why I did the thing that I did and I can address it then. But it's more
I'm
like,
happy for you. Yeah.
yeah, well, it's rough though, because it's
Yeah.
like,
Hmm.
okay, well, why am I doing this? I feel this, I feel that, I feel this. Well, okay, how about it doesn't actually matter what you feel right now
Hmm.
because it matters what they feel right now. So
Ah, interesting.
I have become so fiercely protective of my own boundaries and my own right to own and share my feelings and live and, you know, own the feelings. Anyway, that
Yes.
sometimes I don't understand that my feelings aren't the only ones that
Mm,
matter.
right.
Right. So, like, when
Mm,
you're confronted with that, and you have to, because you have to stop and say, okay, so this is the way I did it. I'm just going to share it with everybody. And the way I did it was like, okay, well, what am I feeling? Right. Like, I'm feeling um, scared. I'm scared that, like, I don't know, I'm going to be blamed for something. I'm going to be blamed for a feeling, a thought, this or that, which is usually the case. I've been blamed a lot for everybody else's, you know, problems. I was always the one that had to like um, manage everybody's sort of feelings, right? So like
mm.
in that, I've learned to manage my own because I never was. Right. Anyway, um,
No, I understand. Yeah.
yeah. So in this, it was more like, well, I know I'm feeling this, but like, do I feel like this person is against me? The answer is no, right? It's Mikey. No. Do I feel like this person has anything bad against me? No. No, I don't. Like, he's always for me. He's never, and in this, you have to really think back.
Yeah.
You have to give yourself real answers and say, go back and say, no, but no, like he's never done
Don't
anything
run
like,
away from it. Don't
right.
ignore it. Right.
So all of this, like, you can put up all these walls and barriers, but sometimes you have to let them down for people. And I
Mhm.
think that it's, that's where I'm getting to now
Oh, good.
and
Yeah.
understanding now. It took like an argument for me to understand that like, oh, I'm being so like fiercely protective of my own stuff that I am just
Mm.
completely negating other people's feelings because I'm like, nope, nope. I
Yeah.
swat them away anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
So anyway, I think it
Well,
was
now
just a
you're
case of
healed
like,
more. That's
yeah, well, like, why am I even doing that to somebody who's never ever
yeah.
literally wronged me ever?
Oh, yeah. We have
So,
been through that. Yeah.
so
But that's
That's
good.
an
You're not
ego
running
death,
away from it.
people.
Yeah.
Well, it was a full on ego death. It took me, it was like a 14 hours of like, I was in bed for like 14 hours, messed up. But I worked through it and it was amazing.
Yeah. Good.
Um,
That's the
yeah,
thing. The more you do that, the more you can come through it. And maybe it won't be as long next time.
yeah,
But
yeah.
congratulations.
You just gotta
Cheers.
cheers. You just gotta realize that you're not perfect. And
That's
that's
right.
really hard for Virgos to do.
That's right. And hey, but the sign of the times, because with the North Node in Pisces, anybody who knows astrology, Virgos are a good example of how to let go of control. People who are Virgos now, we can show how, yes, we can be in control and also how to let go, because that's what Pisces is about, letting go. That's it's on the polar opposite of the Virgo thing. And I think anyway, back to the awareness. Your
No,
your
yeah.
practicing of awareness was definitely what prepared you for that day instead of completely falling apart. And that's
I
where,
did.
like, when V had our major awakening, it was a wonderful thing. But at first, V didn't have a lot of support, and so ended up going into a psych ward. But you
Mm,
know, you didn't have to do that because you've been practicing awareness, and you had people around you that cared about you. And I think that
yeah.
change in perspective, once really you're talking about a change in perspective, but you have to work through it, right? Otherwise, it's just you
Yeah.
can't, it's not just flipping a switch.
No.
It's and that's why it's worth
No,
the work. It is worth going through it because it
well,
is
I've
good
been
things
doing
come out
this
the
with
other side.
him for like 6 years.
Yeah.
We've been doing this for 6 years.
No, we've been through same things, similar things with Dawn, where
Yes.
it's like, why would I put that on her shoulders when she does nothing but support me? Oh, because it's
Right.
from da, 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 da.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But like, talk about beating a dead horse. Talk about like, I don't know. I don't know. That
five or
was
six
hard.
years, five or
It
six
was
years.
hard. Whew, that was a hard one. It's hard to be completely knocked down.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, no, but that's
Yeah.
that's it's hard to do. That's the
But
authenticity we're talking about.
I don't know. It helps
I'm so
like,
happy you're here.
well, it helps to like going back to it. It helps to like to look at somebody or to look at him and think about that about somebody that you love or care about, especially too when they're hurting. You're if you're more worried about yourself, but you need to be worried about the other person. Maybe that's the way to do it is say like, well, they when did they stop being worthy of that too? I it sucks. It sucks to realize that like you've been doing that. It sucks to
Yeah.
be so
Because that's
like,
part of working through it is then having
yeah,
to forgive yourself
yeah.
and then of course you went to him and you're like, I love you.
He's the best. No, yeah, well, yeah. I just we didn't really talk about it much because
Isn't that
I
weird? I have a hard time talking about that stuff too because it seems afterwards it almost seems like, oh, okay, I'm over it. Nah, moving on.
well,
That's how we
that's the
process it.
thing. Well, that's how I'm changing, I think, is that through all of this, through all of the talk therapy and all of the I've been living in fear for a really long time and through all of this like processing and healing and stuff like that, I've felt the
Mhm.
need to people for really to understand like I'm not this bad person because of this. I'm not this
Yeah.
bad person because of this. And I do that a lot. And I think that part of changing who I am um, as that is I need to stop doing that. I think I need to
Mhm.
because of how much awareness I have now. I think I need to stop going to people and saying, I did this to you because of this, that, and the other. I think it's not on them. I don't need to put that on anybody else anymore or
That's a good
explain
point.
it to anybody else
You don't need to
anymore.
apologize for yourself
Well,
anymore.
it's not that. I definitely
You're talking
apologize,
about past stuff,
but
not
yeah, like it's
yeah.
more like normally I would go and I would say, listen, I'm very sorry. I know I lashed out. I worked through it and I understand why I did it. And then I would say, well, this is why I did it, and I'm very sorry. And I think for a while in the healing and getting them to understand that I was working through things and all that, and it was necessary. But I think now I'm to the point where, not that they don't care that maybe something happened that triggered this and this, that, and the other. I don't think I need to go into detail about it anymore because
Just apologize and then that's it.
well, yeah, and I'm comfortable in myself and in these relationships enough now
Yeah.
that I know that aren't they're not holding it against me. Like I think when you say forgiveness and stuff like that, there's a lot of like at the end of this, you've still hurt somebody, and I always feared that it was being held against me even longer than they said it
Mm,
was. You know what I mean?
mhm.
Because it used to be the case, right? So I think there comes a point in all of it where if you're comfortable and I don't know, maybe it's just my own personal
Well,
stuff. I just
I
don't
mean,
feel like
that's
I
where
need to tell everybody anymore why I did it.
talking about it helps with that, though. Yeah, you can
I just
apologize,
need to
but then
change the behavior. I just need to
I see.
do the thing. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I
Hmm.
guess is what it is.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, there you
stop
go.
talking about
I
it.
mean, you're no, but I mean, talking about it like this, like venting it and getting it
Yeah,
out
yeah,
so
yeah.
that you can then approach the situation
Yeah,
with, yeah,
yeah, for sure.
comfortable way.
I think I just working more, I think I work through things a little bit more internally than I used to, which
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
looking at as
Oh,
growth.
most definitely. We used to talk to
Yeah.
myself a lot and still do, but
Hmm.
less because we are able to just kind of be more and
Yeah.
internalize and process, and that helps a lot.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Well,
Yeah.
wonderful.
About all that, we got a little off.
We want to hear
Yeah.
from you because what do you think about awakening and awareness? And if you have any stories to tell, um, by the way, want to hear. We would love to hear from anybody who wants to write us their story as an email, because
Hmm.
it would be nice to be able to post your stories somewhere. If we get enough of them, we'd consider doing something like that. So that
Yeah,
was
we
a little
could just
idea
like
I
if
had. I
you
forgot to run by Coco.
I like it. No, I like it. Yeah, if you could leave it anonymous and we can read
Yeah.
your story and we could if you I don't
We would
know,
most definitely keep it anonymous if you wanted to.
different
And
perspective
so,
on
yeah.
stuff.
Hmm. You just access our email. All
I
right.
like it.
Well, thanks for being here, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out and
Ooh,
listening to
that's
us
right.
and all the things and we hope
It's
you come back.
all the things. That's what we're all about. Thank you. Love and a line, everyone, always.